There's a sickness in the house.
How you feeling, Dan?
Terrible. I've been sick all week, so you guys are going to have to pick up the slack for me.
There's a sickness in the house.
What do you mean even sick?
Sick. I got the plague.
Like a dog. What does that even mean, sick as a dog?
I don't know, but I am it.
You're a dog?
No, I'm sick.
So we got
you guys are on that because I'm feeling like I got run over by a steamroller.
Oh, that's terrible. We should drink some whiskey.
Yeah, right.
It might help.
Put your foot in a bowl of water.
Put your hand in a bowl of water and pee all over yourself.
Oh wait, that's right.
You,
that's what that does.
I heard if you pee all over yourself, it gets rid of your
stuff comes out.
But you have to record it.
Right.
On Twitch. I'm gonna stream it to Twitch.
Twitch. Yeah, and let people make suggestions while you're on the chat.
This is the second time we've had like bodily fluid jokes on the opening part of the show.
What if you go outside in the snow without your shirt on and roll it around?
I've considered that, but there's no snow anymore.
No, it's like Texas up here right now.
It's a shame.
No, it's not. It's actually really nice.
It's gonna be 65 tomorrow. So
65.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as global warming.
Mm-mm.
Well, don't they have like where they take all the snow with the dump trucks, and so there's giant mountains of it somewhere?
They take the dump trucks and they put sharks inside them, and the sharks are in the dump trucks. They swim in the dump trucks. The sharks. Did we just jump the shark? That was a joke. Oh. This is like one of the worst cold opens ever.
What? Isn't there a start button? Hit the start button.
Okay.
From KOYR Studios in Minneapolis, Minnesota, it's Arcade Radio. Intruder alert, intruder alert.
That's a fine how do you do for episode 9.
9 times.
Number 9. Hey, welcome to the show. This is your host, Adam. This is episode 9 of the Arcade Radio podcast. This is great.
Number 9.
Number 9.
Awesome. Oh, wait, no.
I'm joined by the legendary Dan Reed.
Yo.
And time runner, Mr. Mark Shields.
Hola.
And our guest host, Mr. Jim Stolis.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. It's so nice to see you. I mean, hear you. I can't really see you because radio and stuff like that. So welcome to the show. Today is, it's Thursday, February 16th, 2017. It's 8:20. We've been jibber-jabbering for 5 minutes about pretty much nothing. So we should probably get on the show. What do you think?
Wait.
Sooner the better. I have to go die.
What, are you sick? Are you still sick?
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were over that now.
No.
It's like 5 minutes ago.
It's only 5 minutes ago. It was only 5 minutes ago. I thought the cold open was pre-recorded.
Yeah, we made that last week.
Okay, how about a little warm up? What are you working on right now? Dan, why don't you go first since you're going to die?
Nothing. Got one foot in the grave. I've been sick all week. I've been trying to gather my junk because it's so nice out. Get the garage all prepped.
What? Gather your what now?
My junk. I got to get my drill press out and my drill. And,
it has been nice outside.
Yeah, so I'm getting it all ready. And
for what?
Start grinding on some games.
Oh, good. I'll come down and help with that this weekend. How about that?
Yeah, I'll see you Sunday.
All right, sounds good. Mark, what are you up to?
Well, I did a couple pickups. I got a Super Strike bowling for $40.
Sweet.
So
it was awesome.
I'm a little jealous of that, and I shouldn't be because It's a monster. It's a big guy.
It's sitting. It uses up the same amount of space that my Mortal Kombat does, and they're next to each other, side by side.
Wow.
Is Mortal Kombat a huge game too?
Oh, very big. You could hide a small family there.
There may be a small family hiding inside your Mortal Kombat.
No, I checked.
Did you find anything interesting in it?
Nothing that would, a bunch of manuals, but nothing out of the ordinary.
So what's the deal with that game? Is that the one that has the control panel that looks like
It's a bowling alley.
A bowling alley. So you have to roll something in.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like infrared lasers shooting down. It has 2 cue balls. It's pretty awesome, actually. My wife and I now are like, every day before we play our NBA Fast Break, we put in some bowling.
Yeah, you should.
Your NBA Fast Break broke. I saw a disaster Twitter tweet.
It's fixed. A bolt fell out of the launcher, plunger, whatever the auto launcher is.
Oh, yeah.
So that was an easy fix.
I'm not familiar with that at all. So, quick question for you. Isn't that a later 80s game?
It's a 1990 game, I think by a company called Grand. They did 2 of them, and this one is the bowling, and there's also a pool version, like it's a pool table.
Interesting. Yeah, no, because that game looks awesome. And we'll post a picture. Yeah. Can we post a picture of that somewhere?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh, there's people in the chat. We have Adam Vernier and Bob Zarzadek does stuff. Hey. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for joining in. It's the first time I've actually read the chat in like any of our episodes.
You need to watch those Bob Zarzadek videos, by the way. If you haven't, everyone check out Bob Zarzadek on YouTube.
Hola. Subscribe to my channel. Oh, jeez. That guy looks awfully familiar. I'm just saying.
I don't know who that is. And so the other thing I did, I drove for 15 hours to Arkansas and back, and I picked up a complete non-working Tron for $500.
Texarkana Run? That sounds really familiar, like a 70s movie.
What are you doing with all these games?
Little Enos offered to pay me $100, and I said, no, thanks, sir.
Did you need to get a speedy car?
I need a speedier car.
Well, hold up.
Speedier?
Who offered you $100?
Little Enos.
Come on, dude.
It's Big Enos' son.
Who the bleep is Little Enos?
You know who Little Enos is, because if you don't, you're totally out of this podcast.
Yeah. I don't know.
He's an antagonist from the film, protagonist? I don't know. Smoking the Bandit.
Huh. I know Enos
paid them to.
Enos was in Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, so he's in Dukes of Hazzard, I think.
See, hey, welcome to the show, Jim.
Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Different guy.
What do you mean they're different guys? Sounds totally.
Guys. Little Enos is a little person.
He's short. It's Paul Williams.
Yeah. Oh, Paul Williams.
Is it really Paul Williams?
Correct.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Correct. Why do people say that now? That's like a thing.
Paul Williams is still alive. He's awesome. And I think I mentioned that he has a movie called Phantom of the Paradise. So if anybody's listening to this podcast right now, go get Phantom of the Paradise off iTunes. It's so good.
Dude, that movie scared me when I was a kid. I couldn't even watch it.
Me too. I didn't know about
Paul Williams did like all the Muppet music from the Muppet movie.
I know, right? And he had made this horror musical, and it had horrified me when I was a little kid. And only a few months ago, I discovered what that terrible commercial was that had scared me, and it was this crazy movie. Okay, we're really getting. Let's focus.
No, I like this. This is good. This is a good tangent. Also,
not arcade related.
Not really. So I'll go next. I've been working.
Anyway, so what else is going on?
Yeah,
I thought you were sick. I thought you were sick.
I still have enough energy to interrupt.
I'm going to dump your channel. So anyway, I'm working on. Okay, so I have some news, and I'm not sure this is going to be like breaking news anymore, but the Chris Grapp runs. He's the events coordinator at the Mall of America, and I've mentioned several times, and I'm sorry for mentioning it again, but bragging. Yeah. So anyway, he and I synchronized for the Donkey Kong event, and I provided my machine for Steve Weeby to play. Well, it just so turns out that he's having another event next month.
Are you kidding me?
Now I have to bleep. Now I have to bleep too.
That's the shit.
Oh God. Anyway, Bill Mitchell. You might know him as Billy Mitchell. is going to be at the Mall of America next month.
William Mitchell?
Mr.
Willie
Mitchell.
Willie Mitchell.
Proprietor of Ricky's Hot Sauce and Pac-Man gaming legend, will be attempting to set a perfect Pac-Man score at the Mall of America on a Pac-Man machine.
Provided by who?
Well, so the funny thing is, I reached out to the Midwest Pinball and Arcade Collectors group, and I was like, dudes, this is what happens if you donate, and if you got a machine, let me know. And then I said, also, if you have a machine for sale, I would be interested. And just in an off conversation, I started talking to our co-host, Mr. Mark Shields.
He's the
Yeah, and he says,
Oh, I have one in storage, dude. And then Adam offered to become my storage unit mule, and I'm like, yeah, man.
So we made a deal, and I am going to be providing Billy Mitchell with a Pac-Man machine next month.
Mark, you're kind of the central hub for a lot of people around here for getting games.
I don't know how that happened.
I don't either. Dude, you have a huge collection of games, and they're spread out across the United States.
We need to talk about that someday. You got quite the
Yes.
collection.
I gotta get those things all in one spot.
Hey, Dan.
We're gathering them in Conroe, Texas.
Hey, Dan, I know where you can get an Outrun and a Time Pilot and a really cool van, if you're interested.
I've been to his little place. That's where I had to trade my I think he gave me a Bubbles cabinet for free, which I traded for my Journey cabinet.
Oh my God, Bubbles!
And he was just like, yeah, I found this on the what was the story with it? You like found it on some street corner, and you're like, here, you can have this. And I'm like, what's underneath?
That was one of those free Craigslist pickups where the guy said,
"You have got to be kidding me."
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's a funny story. How everyone always asks how I got my Journey cabinet. I'm like, well, you'll never believe this story.
I don't believe this story, and I'm actually kind of mad at both of you right now.
Well, Mark was kind enough, so he's like, hey, check this out. You can have this. And I said, okay, because John Williams was looking for a Bubbles cabinet.
It's total BS.
And he had a Journey cabinet that he was going to turn into an MP3 player, believe it or not. And he's like, I'm never going to find the boards for this, whatever. I said, oh, okay. Well, I have a Bubbles cabinet. But it was pretty funny. So we got the cabinet back and took the siding off, and someone put some sort of laminate on it, and there was a Bubbles underneath. So I traded it for my Journey. It's all because of Mark.
Mark, I love you, dude.
Let me tell you about that pickup real quick. This is like 20 seconds. I go in Uncle Rico's van. I pick up the game. The guy has it in his backyard. He's not there. He's just like, oh, it's in my backyard. Just bring a dolly and, it's yours. And I'm like, no problem. So I've strapped it in, and I'm like, moving it out of his backyard. And I see another guy with a dolly coming my way. And he's like, oh, you already got it. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. He's like, oh, and then he walks away.
That's a terrible story, but I liked it anyway.
You snooze, you lose.
I'm actually, you must have like a sixth sense or like several scripts scraping the internet, looking on Craigslist and eBay for any possible deal so that you can come in and swoop in and get like a free Bubbles cabinet.
I didn't know it was a Bubbles cabinet. I thought it
we didn't know what it was.
Nobody knows. Yep. Nobody knows.
It was sitting in your storage unit, and then we brought it back to my place, and we drilled out the lock, and then I'm like, I wonder what's underneath this laminate. We pulled it off, and we thought it was a Moon Patrol.
Yeah, it was a Final Fight, actually, and I sold that PCB for some money. It was nice.
Nice.
Well, I just want to thank you for, providing me with a Pac-Man machine, because this will be the third machine that I've had world champions play on. So I'm really excited about it, because my first one was Joust.
It's too much bragging right now.
I know, I'm really bragging, but I'm excited about it. It's like a trifecta. I got Lon McDonald, I got Steve Wiebe, and with any luck and no cancellations, I will have a Billy Mitchell signed marquee, hopefully, on my Pac-Man, which would be brilliant. It'll be brilliant. So, Mr. Jim Stolis, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
This is a part where we talk about stuff we're working on, and you may not have like an arcade-related thing, but maybe you do. Maybe you're working on some ROMs. Maybe you're working on whatever. Maybe you're working on firmware. Maybe you're working on programming. Tell us what you're working on that's like maybe game or video game related.
Yeah, let's see. I'd say the closest thing, doing some FPGA programming, which is...
Are you kidding me?
Programmable gate arrays.
Now, this is interesting. Please tell us the difference between something like MAME, which emulates, and something like FPGA?
Well, FPGA is basically a equivalent of a circuit live on a PCB. So everything runs parallel and almost instantaneous. So you can have multiple modules put together in FPGA to emulate. Well, actually, it's a real simulation of a circuit. So you could do something like some of the discrete logic stuff in the past, like Pong, and some of these other games where there's really no main CPU involved.
That's very interesting. So FPGA, you're working on what specifically?
Mostly just learning it. So I've done some stuff where I'm outputting to VGA. So it's just literally pin connections for VGA. It's just a raw connector, and you spit out what you need to spit out so that it renders properly with H-sync, V-sync. You have to put all the timing together yourself, and then just getting that to work. And my next step is to add a ROM so I can read sprites off of it and then render those on screen and so on.
Dan and Mark, there are a couple of FPGA boards out there. I think J-Rock is one of them, right?
Yeah, I have two of his boards. He has a Milestar board and a Williams board.
Right, and give me a rundown of those boards real quick, will you?
It's got the Milestar board has Cubert's Cubes, Krull, Three Stooges, Screw Loose.
Which is valuable to you because you have a Krull.
I have a Krull cabinet, and I'm just not interested in trying to keep that hardware up and running. And
FPGA runs faithfully to the... Now, interesting enough,
I'll be able
Jim,
to speak more to that, but my understanding is this is pretty much running the program. You're just tricking it to run on newer hardware. Is that right?
Yeah, well, actually, what you can do is, depending on the size of the FPGA, the memory footprint, you can actually build an entire microprocessor. So you can do like a Z80 on an FPGA.
Interesting.
And then feed that the ROM and have it run appropriately, and then you're just, outputting VGA or HDMI, whatever you really want. I mean, I've even done just simple stuff where you've seen these cards you can buy where it takes CGA in and you want to just do VGA out. You could easily do that with FPGA.
It's like a virtual PCB.
Yeah, it really is. And the nice thing is it's reprogrammable because you're not shorting out and like some of these older chips where you would blow fuses pretty much to create the gates and so on. But this one is rewritable.
That's very cool.
So do you have a specific idea of what you're going to do once you get a handle on it? You're going to try to reproduce something?
I don't have any real specifics. It's really just I'd like to use it because it's very digital. So you can kind of put it in between, kind of do a man in the middle on certain things. There's a lot of things that I've done on the MAME platform dealing with a lot of in the gaming industry for gambling, and being able to try and figure out their protocols, which are definitely not documented. And so I can, one of the things I'm going to use it for is a bill validator. When you put in a dollar bill, it has certain protocols that it uses to talk to the machines and so on. And it's a great way to be able to intercept those signals and output them yourself and still pass them back out. So it's unaware of what you're doing. And you can use it also to, very similar with protection chips on various PCBs, you'd be able to kind of intercept signals and see what's on the bus and so on.
Sort of de-suicide boards kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a little bit of a lot of this stuff is when you're dealing with emulation has a lot of just research, and sometimes there's nothing documented, and all you can do is kind of fuzz the inputs and see what comes out of it, and then try and document from there.
This is going to be good. I know there's a lot of people out there that want to know about this kind of stuff. I think it's going to be great because we'll dive into it a little bit more when we start talking to you about what it is that you were up to in the MAME project and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for sharing that, what you're working on right now. And I think we're moving on now to...
It's the Arcade News with Don Reed.
Game Band. Have you guys heard about this?
I have not.
It's a new Kickstarter.
What? Maybe I have. Go ahead and tell me about it.
It's a... I can't decide on this or not. It looks really awesome from the Kickstarter page.
It does look awesome.
Yeah, it's a smartwatch that has a micro SD card, and what you can do with it is play classic arcade games right on the watch. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
I don't either. I mean, like a little tiny watch. You're doing like, and you can't play Pong by yourself.
It looks like a Apple Watch.
It does.
Actually.
It does look a lot like an Apple Watch. And we'll post links to it after the show, and we'll put it in our feed. But
so it seems appropriate because I think it would be pretty simple. I think most arcade games running at something like 320 by 240 resolution. So you think that would be something that would be pretty easy to mimic.
Super. Yeah. Put it right into the watch. And just so you know, you guys, if you want to go find it, it's on Kickstarter. So Kickstarter, just look for Game Band on Kickstarter.
So it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't
know how it's going to work.
What's the next item?
The Retro Arch. You guys heard of this?
Retro Arch is awesome. It's a front end for MAME.
Right. And now apparently hackers have figured out a way to get that to run on the NES Classic.
Interesting.
What?
Yep. So if you want to potentially run NES, SNES, or Sega, probably Genesis games from the look of it here.
Jim, do you know anything about this?
Yeah. So this is using a platform called LibRetro. Sounds like some kind of Italian word, but it's actually LibRetro.
Okay.
All of these are cores that are plug-in ready. So what you do is people have written different emulator cores for NES, Game Boy, Sega, etc. And they are using this LibRetro API, which allows multi-platform compilation. So basically, for this particular product, the NES Classic, I've seen so far on their video, they're definitely supporting NES, Game Boy, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and they're using Atari 2600 with the Stella platform. So
that's really cool.
Cool. So, and maybe we should ask this later if it's going to get too in depth, but does this kind of tie into the MAME project?
Not particularly. A lot of these are standalone cores. They may have used some of the MAME source to discover how to make their cores.
Oh, but, Adam Vernier says that it can do N64 too. Is that true? Or is that just RetroArch on the PC?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I saw the cores that were loaded on the demo video, and I didn't see N64 on there. It doesn't mean it doesn't support it. It's all about memory footprint and whether or not the Classic can take it.
Yeah, the Classic is pretty finite hardware. I would expect that to be more like a RetroPie, where it can't really handle the N64. And even though it could run a few games, probably okay. Maybe not the whole entire library on N64, but you definitely could use RetroArch on your PC and your gaming PC, and you could run N64 games, right?
Yes, yeah, they have quite a few more core plugins for that.
Bob Zarzadek is awesome. I think I'm going to friend him. He's in the chat right now. He's
subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, and he's wearing a turban. He's kind of like Klinger.
That's his hair.
Klinger.
You know, remember Klinger? Klinger was in Cannonball Run with a turban. Do you remember that?
No, Klinger is in MASH. He was
that's MASH.
Cross-dresser.
No, but he played like an Arab guy in Cannonball Run.
That was him?
Yeah, it was Klinger.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh my God.
That is funny.
Anyway, sorry to derail the news. What else are we looking at, Mr. Dan Reed?
Well, if you live in Phoenix, you'll probably be proud to know that Cobra Arcade Bar has been named one of the nation's coolest video games bars. According to the list. Let's consider the source. According to the list.
So that's from KTAR, which is probably from Phoenix, right? They broadcast from Phoenix?
Oh, sure.
I'm in Phoenix next week.
You got to go check this out.
What? I am. I'm totally going there. I'm going to go check this out and see if it's truly one of the nation's coolest video game bars.
You have to let me know. I've seen some pictures.
I like the one we talked about was it last episode or the episode before in Orlando? I want to go to that one. But this
What one? What? Oh,
the loungy one.
Yeah, I want to see that too.
Yeah, but
there's a few in Orlando.
Somebody in Orlando report back to us on.
Well, Jen May,
she could go.
She's from Florida. She needs to go. We talked to her. Maybe that was that episode actually. Yeah, she needs to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
I've been to one in Orlando. It was a Pac-Man theme.
Oh yeah, well, there's yeah. So Dan and I are joking like every week. It's like you should just report that there's 362 new barcades opening up because that's how it goes, right? And I don't mind. I think it's really cool. But I wonder how many of them are going to stay open. Like, how many rusty quarters and insert coins are we going to get before we get like a couple of good up downs? Because up down, I don't see going away.
No,
You know,
but I guess so.
Unless they're blowing all their money on Coke.
you know, it doesn't matter. They have like a huge millennial crowd that's never done arcades, and they love that.
Before we sign off with the news, I just want to point out that it pretty much sucks that there's no news in here that I can be negative about, because today I'm feeling ultra negative.
What about punching arcade machines?
In Japan.
Yeah.
Special word for that.
So Kotaku, is that what it is, .com? I've never known how to pronounce that website before.
Kotaku.
They are reporting that in Japan, when people get angry and destroy arcade machines, there's a name for that.
What is it?
Daipan.
Daipan.
No matter how upset you get, don't punch arcade game machines, please. In Japanese, punching arcade cabinets is called daipan.
Oh my gosh! If you look at the Kotaku.com, when people get angry and destroy arcade machines article, you'll see there's like a machine that's covered up with Zima box.
I see that.
What the heck is going on there?
Oh.
I thought Zima was dead.
Well,
No, they still make Zima.
Nice hat. Don't get that in your
I think
mind.
it's Canadian.
It's not Canadian.
is it? Zima?
I think it's
I love
Japanese.
Zima.
Those fucking...
I used to love Zima too. In fact, I have a little side story. We were on our way. This is not a one-up story. I'm just telling you a story.
You're one-upping us right now.
Anyway, so I'm on my way to EdgeFest number 1, and my Dan, remember that dude we met with before we decided to do the show? His name was Pat, Mr. Pat Crane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I do.
and he does a World of Warcraft podcast, and he gave us some tips on how to do a successful podcast, which we've been failing at every week.
He's a nice fellow. He didn't know
he's
this much.
We had breakfast with him and his wife.
Yeah.
Anyway, his wife and I, before he and she, actually, he and she had just met. They had just met. We went to EdgeFest number 1 together. Believe it or not.
What's EdgeFest?
EdgeFest was 93.7 The Edge. It was an alternative rock station here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they used to play, all the crap like if what if God was one of us, and like Hole and like Blur and
So 90s tunes.
yeah,
The dreaded REM.
well, just the Monster album, which was crap. But anyway, so sorry, chatters, and we got another dude in the chat now. Mike Martin. Mike, welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out.
You're going to scare him away.
No,
Jeez.
I'm not. I'm totally not going to scare him away because Bob's there and he's going to welcome to the show. So anyway, we went to this thing, and on the way, there was this.
Are you about done with the story yet?
No, I'm not. I'm going to drone on until you shut up. So
And that's the Arcade Radio News.
okay.
The end.
All right. Well, if anyone, okay, fine. Okay, that's it.
Back in '82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin quarter mile.
Back to the Cade with Time Runner.
Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Nice. Hello, everybody. I'm going to set our destination time to February 16th, 1978. And everything that I'm going to talk about all is relative to this day in 1978, which is like, 39 years ago or something?
This is a long time ago.
Long time ago.
I was 6.
Okay. You were 6? I was 8 or 9 or something.
Well, 8 should be really easy. You must have been born in 1970.
Well, I was born in 69, so I'm like...
Oh, what about February? Were you still...
August. So
That's right. Are you a Scorpio?
Virgo.
Oh, yeah. No, it's Leo or Virgo, right? So I'm a Virgo also. When were you born?
August 27th.
28th, dude.
What?
Are you kidding me? We're a day apart.
Yes.
We're totally celebrating our birthdays together this year. I don't know how, but we're going to do it. Celebrate.
Okay,
we're going to celebrate, not do it.
All right, so let's discuss this date. In February 16th, 1978, the first computer bulletin board system went live. It was Ward and Randy's CBBS in Chicago.
And that's important to me. Why?
Well, I mean, BBSs are sort of the precursor to the internet. I mean, at the same time, there was ARPANET, which were mainframes talking to each other, but BBS has sort of set the stage for forums.
So besides the TI 994A, what other platform did you build a BBS off of?
Well, my BBS that I wrote on the 994A was copying the one that was on Apple's. My parents didn't buy me an Apple; they bought me a TI.
So you figured out how to port it? You ported it?
I stole the user interface, basically.
That's really quite awesome, actually.
That was, bored junior high student.
So, I mean, that's a huge deal. First computer BBS goes live 1978, February, on this date.
It was a really cold snow. Yeah, it was cold and snowy, and they were bored, so that's what happened.
So I wonder how many. They probably have about as many listeners as we do, or dial people that dialed up, right? Like, how do you get people to dial up?
Well, originally, the BBS lists were shared, on the mainframes, and then certain people would maintain them. I was on Judy Sheltema's list in Houston, Texas.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, let's talk about the top 5 songs.
I like that. Let's do it.
Okay, so you're going to notice a pattern here as we.
I'm going to sing along. Let's do this.
Okay. For number 1 was "Love Is Thicker Than Water."
Wait. Let's do the 5 down. Let's go from the bottom up. We want to end with the number 1 song.
Fine. Well, number 5. So number 5 was "Night Fever" by the Bee Gees.
Night fever. Something like that, right?
Too much falsetto for my demeanor at the moment.
I think
I think that Barry Gibb does a lot of a lot of vibrating.
Night fever. Is that better?
There you go.
Okay.
Number 4, "Staying Alive."
Staying alive.
Again.
Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man. No time to talk.
This top 5 is surprisingly dominated by Gibbs.
Or the Bee Gees. It's pretty amazing, huh?
And when I get to the next reason, well, you'll see. "Emotion" by Samantha sang also for, a song that includes the Bee Gees.
Yeah. Barry Gibb? Is it Barry? Yeah. He produced it. He co-wrote it. Yeah.
And then the odd duck number 2 here.
Yes. "Sometimes when we touch."
Sometimes when we touch. Oh, that's creepy. That song is creepy.
Oh, go on.
Why did you pick 1978? I love that you picked 1978, but why did you pick 1978?
Well, I mean, Space Invaders was out, and we will tie into that, but you'll see in a moment.
But seriously, what's number 1?
Number 1 was "Love Is Thicker Than Water" by Andy Gibb.
The whole frickin' Bee Gees gang dominated the chart. 4 out of 5 songs are a Bee Gees song, basically.
Correct. And the reason why was at the box office on this date. Saturday Night Fever was number 1 for the 9th week in a row.
All right, boys, let's just take a moment and think about that. Disco was in full effect on February 16th, 1978.
But seriously, so
people thought disco was cool.
Arcades were being brewed in a cauldron right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Brewed.
1978, what was happening is someone was mixing up the magic formula that was going to create the golden age of arcades. And I think 78 really was the start. And what a great year to pick, Mr. Mark Shields. Besides at the box office, what do we have? Saturday Night Fever? And then what was next? What also was going on in pop culture right around that time?
Well, on television, there was only 4 networks, I guess, if you count PBS, or as I call it, the "Hey, maybe we'll see somebody naked today" channel, which featured National Geographic. What was on that? What was on this night? Well, Welcome Back, Carter was on, and then
I hated that show.
Followed up by
hey, another tie-in. Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta, Welcome Back, Cotter.
You're right,
dude.
You're totally right.
What the fuck is going on in 78?
It's like Clear Channel was running the internet. Wait a minute. I don't know what I'm saying.
Later that night on ABC was Beretta.
Like Beretta.
Didn't that guy like murder his wife?
Mm-hmm.
No, he
pushed her off a boat.
Yeah, no, that was
fine. No, that was Robert Wagner.
Yeah, that was Robert Wagner. Totally. No, the guy that starred in Beretta was accused of killing his wife.
He was acquitted, so we can't hold it against him.
He was accused of killing his wife.
Crazy. She was crazy. Okay, on CBS, there was a two-parter Waltons episode, much to everyone's chagrin, called The Ordeal, which I'm sure nobody watched.
Okay, just pause.
And then,
did any of you actually like the Waltons?
Dude, I don't think I've ever seen an episode of the Waltons ever.
Freaking hate the Waltons.
I watched the end.
Yeah. Good night, John Boy.
Like it when they go, good night, John Boy. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, good. Is there another show on? Is there another show on? Because I'm done with the Waltons.
No, let's go on about the Waltons a little bit. Do you think that was worse?
I thought you were sick. I'm going to kick you in the...
Now you got me fired up.
I think the Waltons was worse. It was just boring drama. Followed up later that night by Hawaii 5-0.
Okay, so I love Hawaii 5-0.
Oh, God, I hated Hawaii 5-0.
Jack Lord. He's like the best. He's the best.
Who?
Jack Lord.
You really watched Hawaii 5-0 when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. The reruns? Totally, I ran. Yeah.
No, you didn't. You're the one kid that did.
Mike Martin is reminding us of 8 is Enough right now.
I was just talking about 8 is Enough. I like this Mike guy. Get him on. Have him call in.
We should have Mike be. He should call in 612-548-GAME. Leave us a message on the game line.
No, it's have him call in live. We'll talk to him. I need some backing.
Can't do it. If he calls in, I can't answer it right now. Not equipped.
Bummer.
Mark, let's get off of Hawaii 5-0. What was on NBC, pal?
NBC had Chips.
Oh, God, yeah.
The coolest intro song ever.
Okay, wait, so let me just... so everybody agrees Chips. We love Chips, right?
Well, Chips was like what I watched when the Dukes of Hazzard wasn't on.
So there's a tie-in to modern-day Chips. Did we talk about this in the last episode? I can't remember. But there
are we going to...
There's seriously,
Is
like...
this the one-up thing again?
No. I don't always one-up. I just have really good stories, that nobody really wants to listen to, and since I have your ear.
And that's the Arcade Radio News.
Come on. No, we're not in the news. We were done with the news like hours ago. We're in a Wayback Machine right now, and you can't stop us. But anyway, they're doing a movie, Chips the movie. I'm not joking, and it's a comedy.
Who's in it? It's a comedy.
Yep.
They got to stay away from this.
You guys look it up right now. It's like... right? Yeah, this is becoming a movie. I'm not joking.
Why don't you find the theme song for 8 is Enough?
Are you kidding me? 8 is Enough.
Find it.
It's some guy singing.
Right. It's nobody has that song.
Bring me back.
Nobody.
Bring me back. We're in the Wayback Machine. Do it.
Nobody wants that song.
That wasn't on this night, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
You don't know. There's a magic. Oh my God. Oh yes.
It's worse than I remember.
Listen to that voice.
This is so terrible. Oh my God.
And Adam Rich as Nicholas.
Oh my gosh.
Oh God, is that good? Why'd you turn it off?
Because I don't want to be like arrested by the FCC.
They'd probably be happy that you even mentioned it.
They probably don't even scrape for that song. They're like, that show is so crappy. Who cares, right?
There's no royalties going back.
It's funny that you're bringing up 8 is Enough, because the next show after Chips was called James at 15, which pretty much tried to rip off 8 is Enough.
I've never
Only
heard
one
of it.
season. It's terrible. It's basically it was a drama about a typical 15-year-old, although in 21 episodes, he never once approaches an arcade.
We do have, you guys, seriously.
This is 78, so the arcades aren't brewed yet. But Mark, I have a request for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
Next week, or 2 weeks from now when we do this again, we need to do a full report on Sid and Marty Krofft.
Oh, yeah. You guys, we got
it. Puffin stuff.
Yeah. But we have one more little theme. I'm going to play a little section of this from Mr. Mike Martin, who's listening to the show right now. Because 1978 was also the year that Battlestar Galactica came out.
Oh my God, so Buck Rogers must have been out too.
1979.
Aaron Gray, boys.
Oh, I know, right? But seriously.
She could touch my silver spoons.
Yeah, that's for Mr. Mike Martin, and thanks for bringing that up because I'm a huge my license plate says Adama, so I'm a huge Battlestar Galactica fan, and rest in peace, Mr. Richard Hatch, which I think is apropos.
Mike, you're an okay guy. You can come back and call anytime.
Yeah, absolutely.
I finally have someone on my side with TV shows.
So what else was on TV in 1978, Mr. Mark Shields?
Well, after that was what really happened in the class of 65. One thing I forgot to point out about Saturday Night Fever was that film spawned the Williams pinball game Disco Fever in August later that year.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's terrible.
Yes, it's awful.
James at 15 was a drama about a 15-year-old or something?
Yeah, I mean, he was constantly trying to hook up and, it's really boring.
Yeah.
Go look for the Blu-ray. You're not going to find it.
I don't want the Blu-ray, actually.
I'm going to mail it to you now that I know your address. But really, the show, What Really Happened to the Class of 65, no clue what that was about. Kind of a vague.
Okay, moving on. Oh, yeah. This is the part on the show where we interviews, we talk about oh, yeah, here we go.
Be our guest. Be our guest. Put our service to the test.
That means we're talking to you, Mr. Jim Stolis. Again, welcome to the show. And
thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I have a few questions for you.
Fire away.
You've had a long career in IT, right?
Yeah, I've been working with professionally, I've been a programmer for about 27 years now.
But you've recently got into board game design, which is pretty cool. So give us a little bit of your background. Like, how'd you get in IT? How'd you find your way into MAME? And give us a little background about your board game design.
Sure. Well, like most of the people here today, I've kind of started out with back in the day with the Apple II. I was about 15 years old when that came out.
Represent.
Actually, before that, I even did back in junior high. I remember using the old teletype machine with the acoustic coupler on it and hooking up to Mech back before they were a big deal and did their Oregon Trail and everything else. You could actually log into their timeshare through phone dial-up, and it would do this big old printout for you on I used to save those. I don't have any of them anymore. I wish I would have seen those again. But so that kind of got me intrigued with computers. Apple II, did a lot of programming, hacking. Back then it was pretty big bulletin boards, kind of like you were mentioning. And so that got my programming pretty much kick-started on my own. I didn't really take any professional classes on it just because I had achieved pretty good progression.
Did you crack any games?
Oh, yeah. Lots of them. Back in the Wares days.
Oh, sure. I probably
You made a text.
I had something from our group and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Did you have a name you went by?
I was Alias the Alias.
Oh.
Really bad name, but
Did you also have like an ASCII logo?
no, I didn't. We didn't have ASCII stuff because mostly we were doing floppy disks, game cracks and stuff for the Apple at the time, and so we would crack the game, and then we'd create our own little signature page that we would kind of intercept on the boot loading so that it would show our stuff, and then it would continue the boot on.
Love it.
I'm sure I had to have one of your games. What games did you guys crack back then?
Oh, I'd say probably one of the biggest ones you might remember would have been from like Ultima 3.
Oh, yes.
Stuff like that. I remember doing Auto Duel.
Oh, Auto Duel. That was one of my favorite games. I love Auto Duel.
Yeah, I mean, we just pummeled through a ton of them. I basically learned assembly language with the 6502 quite proficiently at that point.
So assembly, is that also used on the VCS?
Yeah, I mean, there's a slight derivative of the processor, but I think it's like a 6502 normally, but I can't remember what the processor was, like a 6302 or something weird. It's the same family though, so it pretty much had the same opcodes and everything.
Have you ever programmed anything for the 2600?
Not really. I did a light amount of homebrew, just trying to learn it and just understand it. But that is an extremely complex system, believe it or not, and dealing with some of the bank switching and the way that they do the video mapping. I tried it, but never got really into it.
Tell us a little bit of how you ended up in MAME.
Several years have gone by, and I purchased a video slot machine at the time, and I noticed that they share a lot of similarities to arcade machines. I mean, they've got many of the same CPUs internally, or MCUs. They use a lot of the same sound chips, like the Yamaha sound chips and so on. And they have graphic ROMs. They do bit planes, just like arcade machines do. And so I'm like, this is kind of interesting. I always like to tear stuff apart and kind of figure out the inner workings of them. So at this point, prior to that, I'd done some ROM hacking with Arkanoid. I created an editor for people to make their own levels for Arkanoid, and then you could redump them. I did some Donkey Kong editing and also Crazy Climber, which is the only machine I actually own is a Crazy Climber Cocktail Edition. So, but yeah, so I learned a lot about this slot machine. I'm like, well, I'm going to check with the developers in MAME and see if they're okay with me submitting a driver. And at the time, like in the early 2000s, they actually kind of banned gambling machines from MAME. I'm not sure. They kind of changed their stance later. But so I put this out and learned a lot about it. And it actually ended up helping the MAME core itself. This particular processor was a 8032, which is part of this family called an MCS 51. And basically that core in MAME was incomplete, but it rendered a lot of games for the arcade fine. But this video poker machine of mine actually ended up using some opcodes and some different functionality of the core that wasn't implemented yet in MAME. So I submitted some changes to that and got my game working, and it actually ended up helping MAME as a whole for future arcade stuff. So it's kind of nice that they've allowed some of these other machines to be used, because they weren't aware of some of the things, that were pressing different sections of the CPU that had never been used before.
And maybe for some of our listeners that are new to MAME, can you tell us what exactly is MAME?
Sure. Well, initially the word MAME came from Multiple Arcade Machine Emulation. And the originator, Nicola, I can't remember his last name, Samarini or something to that effect. He basically just did a few arcade machines where he took the ROM impressions for the programs and the graphics, and he used a chip reader to dump those into a binary format, and then he would write a wrapper around that would emulate all of the other parts of the arcade machine. So what this means is you're not simulating what an arcade does, like, making Pac-Man do this and that. You're actually running the exact code that was found in the arcade cabinet. The difference is you're mapping it to modern hardware. So you might be using a keyboard instead of a joystick, or a real joystick, but now you can use DirectX and you can use an LCD monitor.
So how do they compensate for, say, like Pac-Man or any of the older games that may have run on, like, say, a Z80 or a Z-Log chip? How do they? So they obviously have to write code that can slow down a processor and run at the same speed. How do they do that?
So every processor has individual instructions that are executed at the machine level. It's right here, assembly language or machine code. And all of those have different timings associated with it. And this is all documented. If you actually are, one of these chip nerds that just go through and just want to read everything about a Z80, it'll tell you.
I know Mark and Dan are really into that, reading about that stuff.
Yeah, so it'll tell you that certain instructions, maybe that takes 3 clock cycles to do an addition and 2 to do a shift register or something. But basically, what they do is they count these clock cycles so they're exact to what the CPU was using. and then they just add a time constant based off of your CPU so that it's always running at the proper rate.
Oh, that's interesting.
We simulate the crystals, so we know it's a 1 megahertz clock in there.
Oh.
Then we just make sure that
for the
every
sound and
instruction
stuff. Or
yeah, I mean, you have to be pretty good about reading schematics when you're doing a driver for MAME, because you will be using that for your baseline to make sure that everything is accurate.
It's really interesting. Here's a little aside for you. There's a 60 in one, 4 billion in one, whatever in one. What are your thoughts?
I think they're pretty interesting setups, but as a MAME developer, though, they're pretty much shunned for what they are. We've actually found, depending on the unit, that sometimes they're actually taking MAME code and kind of obfuscating it and hiding it. But we've seen strings in some of the dumps that show us that it's actually MAME code running on some of these machines. And
so like the 61 is actually maybe using MAME.
Yeah, it's basically using a very tiny compiled version and running it on specific hardware. So it's kind of a gray area, they're not really considered official, as it were.
Yeah, speaking of that, there's legality surrounding that. Do you have any comment on, say I have to be honest, I mean, I've had to use ROMs to recover some of my machines, like my Xenon vocalizer board. It died, and when I tried to reseat the chips, the legs just fell off.
Sure.
And so I had to reburn all those chips. In fact, a tie into my Mall of America Donkey Kong story, which is getting old. I'm sorry, but when I was going to prepare that for Steve.
No, tell it again. Tell it again.
When I was preparing my game for Steve, you guys know the rules, right? It has to be a virgin Donkey Kong board. You can't have any mods on it. And I'm running the Braze kit, which, interestingly enough, apparently runs its own version of Donkey Kong in addition to storing your scores. So what happened was I had a problem with my 4-board set. There was a problem with one of the interconnect cables. And to make a long story short...
Too late.
Okay. True that. So anyway.
And that's the Arcade Radio News.
Dun, dun, dun.
Guys are so harsh. You're so harsh. Dan, I thought you were sick. Go to bed. So, I was having some issues, and I thought, okay, I'll compare the ROMs. So I dropped them into a little reader that I have, which, incidentally, Jim taught me how to use that reader and how to use the burner. It's an inexpensive burner that you can get on the internet, and it's like $100, maybe 120. It's got its own little software. It allows you to do checksums on your ROMs, right? Mm-hmm. So I load up all of my Donkey Kong ROMs just to make sure everything's working right, because I'm like, well, I'm having sound issues and graphic issues. Maybe there's something wrong there. So I load them all up, and I find some differences. The checksums aren't accurate. So I reburn all my ROMs using a DK ROM set. It says DK ROM set US1. Well, I don't remember what site I got them from, and I downloaded them, burned them to my ROMs, and I put them back in. Well, that didn't solve the problem. And the Braze kit continued to run the game. Well, as soon as I took the Braze kit out, because I can't have any sort of, any modifications to the game when Steve's playing it to set a world record, something weird happened. And instead of having, what happened was I started playing it just to test it out. And so you got the barrel level, and all the barrels are coming down. I'm jumping the barrels, and I get up and I do the thing. And then all of a sudden, I'm on the pie level, the cement factory level. And all of a sudden, I'm on the elevator level. And then finally, I'm on the girder level with the blue level. And then you defeat Donkey Kong. And it turns out that that's the original sequence of the Japanese version of Donkey Kong, and I actually burned my ROMs on my Donkey Kong with the Japanese ROMs.
Oh, yeah.
So I was freaking out, and I called Jim, and I'm like, Jim, you got to help me out. I'm bringing my Donkey Kong machine to the Mall of America in like 2 days, and it has the wrong ROMs. So I got the right ROMs, and Jim read the headers and told me, oh yeah, you got the Japanese ROMs there, and oh, these are the right ROMs, and you should burn these. So I burned those, and this is the long story ending now, but thanks to Jim, my Mall of America Donkey Kong event was successful. So I appreciate that.
What was that score, by the way, at the end?
He didn't make it all. I mean, he did really well. I think he was in the 900,000s, actually.
Oh.
But he played 3 times. So he had like a 400, he had a 700, and a 900.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was not 4 times, maybe 3. But it's a long day for a Donkey Kong player. You do 3 times 4, it's 4 hours of playing each game. I can't imagine.
Yeah, that's just got to be draining.
I would be happy to be like at the 200,000 level, around the 100, like around the 45-minute mark, which is still a long game of Donkey Kong,
Oh yeah, that's like back in the 80s. You remember that book that came out? It was called I think it was Mastering Pac-Man. It was like Ken Uston. He was like this huge blackjack guy, and he writes this book on Pac-Man. And I remember reading that as a kid, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be the greatest. And I would actually play. He had like 5 patterns in this book. That's all you had to remember, and you can get like all of the key levels, and you just keep going. I mean, it was just insane. But yeah, there's a point where you get to those things, to those higher levels, and you just feel like drained, and it's actually not as fun after a while.
One of the guys we're trying to get on the show is Tim McVeigh, and he plays a mean game of Nibbler, and you have to play that game for a long time, and I can't imagine like building up extra guys to take bathroom breaks. It's just like legendary. I love hearing stories like that, but I personally could never do it. I would love to talk to those people and see how they do it and how they prepare for it, but I am not prepared to like. I'm not going to get a bunch of extra guys just so I can pee and have a slice of pizza.
Get a catheter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just get a bucket. Do it like the rest of us.
Catheters. We're not Cath. Anyway, so MAME version 0.180 appears to be the most current version. Is that still true as of December 16?
I'd have to take a peek. 818, I guess it just came out in December. Yeah.
Okay. So, can you tell us what kind of improvements? 0181. One of these, whatever the version is, go look it up on the internet. So, can you tell us what kind of improvements they make when they do each of these revisions? Like what kinds of things may have happened in the last version?
There's really not huge kind of leaps going here. Oftentimes you're looking at just stable revisions where someone's just patched up something where there was glitches and stuff. We have our own MAME testers website where people can submit bugs, and then the developers will go through that and try to repair them. But a lot of people don't know that MAME actually produces a new build every month, the last Wednesday of the month. They've been doing that since 2014. So you can actually patch, if you go out to like GitHub, you can download the source code, compile it yourself, and you can get revisions every month.
That's cool. So what are the types of games that you enjoy most getting into the MAME archive? Or, what kinds of things have you come across that you're like, oh, that's something cool. I've never seen that before.
Well, so MAME, I told you, it was originally called Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator, but actually between 2012 and 2015, we actually started merging with a sister project called MESS, which stood for Multiple Emulator Super System, and that's basically all your micros like Apple II and...
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I remember
and all the consoles, NES and Xbox and so on. So now MAME has absorbed that. By the end of 2015 or so, we use the same source repository now, which is beneficial for everything because, once again, like I did with the poker machine, now we've got all these other things involved, and you're seeing those enhance even more so that the CPUs and stuff are getting much more accurate. And you need to realize that MAME is a preservation system. We're trying to preserve ROMs. We're trying to document systems. There's over 30,000 systems now at this point that have been documented, whether it be micros or arcade. And it's all about accuracy. There's nothing, we don't try to, be speed accurate. Oftentimes some of the games crawl because they're accurate, but they're not cheating. You'll find other emulators out there where people have optimized for a certain platform and they work great, but that's not what we're doing. We're trying to keep it as accurate as possible. And that includes artwork. there's a whole Mr. Do, I guess is the name of the gentleman that does a lot of the artwork preservation, so that even something as simple as the little as a marquee, a console, instruction sheets that may be under the glass and so on. So
that's really cool.
So anyway, yeah, I actually had a good time with your Arachnid English Mark darts.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So I threw that into the MAME system.
So wait, let's back up.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we were talking about it, and you were over here one time. So anyone who has an English Mark darts, a Super Plus 2 or whatever, with the old amber 9-inch screen on it, there is a ROM in it.
Yeah, it has a CPU, it has a ROM.
Yeah.
And it has a giant input system, which is basically where all the little dart pads are.
I totally forgot about this. So you asked me to burn the ROM, right?
Yeah, so I made a driver out of it, and obviously I can't simulate the darts so well. So I just mapped the keyboard. So like the letter R might hit a bullseye, and then the letter T is a triple 20. But it was a way to test that the unit actually works, and it's kind of fun.
But that enables you to then so for instance, on that particular ROM, it had Cricket, it had 301, 501, it had Tic-Tac-Toe, and potentially we could rewrite our own dart game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could do homebrew. I mean, homebrew is a very big industry that people branch off of MAME. I mean, there's a lot of things that beyond that people are doing with MAME beyond arcade. But I mean, there's artificial intelligence, deep learning going on. I saw someone create something that hooks up to the parallel port on your computer, which most people don't have anymore, and it'll output XY monitor straight out. So you can actually use MAME for vector games with a real
in the native hardware
monitor.
Oh, interesting. Getting back to the native hardware question, I'm just gonna throw this out here. So we talked about FGPA. We're talking about emulating in real hardware. Monaco GP is kind of a favorite out there amongst collectors, and it's cool because it has the LED display. And it sort of has an oscillation pattern for how the car goes back and forth, and you dodge your cars. But the interesting thing about that game is it's a little bit before ROMs were really around and a true CPU. And so this whole thing is actually rendered in discrete logic, and the pieces of the pixels and whatnot are actually brought in and rendered on the fly. And then you have this sort of oscillation pattern for how you need to dodge cars. And Monaco GP led to Turbo, which led to really, I think, Atari trying to compete with Pole Position. And those three games are like pivotal. But Monaco GP is a huge hit in my house. I have a Mini. Can you tell us why Monaco GP cannot be put into MAME?
It's not a matter of it cannot be put into MAME. We've actually made some pretty big progress. I say we, but it's not. I'm just talking to this group because it wasn't me that did. There's a gentleman on the group with a handle called Kurasud, I think is his name. And he's actually doing an entire discrete logic plugin for MAME. It's part of the core. It's called a netlist. I don't know if anyone's familiar with electronics where you can do like spice simulators where you can plug, various components together and simulate what a chip would do or putting certain capacitors and resistors together. Well, that is being done today. Games like Pong have actually been introduced into MAME now, and they're taking the schematics and creating these net lists, which is just a bunch of connectivity saying this part is a capacitor, it has this value, and it part A connects to part B.
That is insane.
And it's just a big mapping of a schematic, and it runs.
So they're basically building a custom PCB to run these things. Right.
So the problem is we're running these through a PC, and they're dog slow.
Okay.
So
how do you compensate for timing then? I mean, it's like,
yeah, it will run eventually, but it's a matter of CPUs catching up.
Interesting.
But the nice thing is that with this discrete logic library, we're using it for sound and other components.
To me, that's like totally, counterintuitive because the CPUs today are so fast. Why would it take so much CPU power to actually, render a Pong game.
Well, it all boils down to what I spoke about earlier about FPGA. It's a parallel process. So unless you're running it on a GPU like an NVIDIA graphics card, you're not going to get the throughput of, because everything has to be time sliced. It's just incredibly slow.
Interesting. So what if they did take advantage of a GPU? Is there any? But then
it's possible, and I wouldn't doubt someone will come out with an FPGA version of it someday too. I mean, it wouldn't take. It's going to take some work, but there's nothing technically holding it back.
Yeah.
And then there would be. I think I remember that game. Doesn't that even have an incandescent bulb for the fog effect or something?
Well, so they maybe turbo, but I think the interesting thing about the most interesting thing about that game is in the cockpit of Monaco GP, besides the LEDs keeping score, which is, there's got to be some bits flipping there to switch those on and off. Mm-hmm. You have a live tachometer, which is,
because you still have discrete components, so you can do analog, and
that's just crazy.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I probably wouldn't expect it to be ever part of MAME until CPUs are just insanely fast, or someone comes up with something.
I can't remember, but I think either the Master system in Japan or the Mega Drive actually did a port of Monaco GP, which is one of the rare ones you can get, which is probably the only way you can get it without actually playing the actual hardware. So
someone did a simulator, and there's a difference between simulating and emulating, but I'd say that was probably about 10 years ago. You can Google it and you can find it, but it's definitely not complete like a real discrete logic netlist would do.
Tell us a little bit about Laserdisc games, another sort of interesting foray into MAME. So they have both ROM and video components. Tell us what the challenges are in emulating a laser game.
Lead on, adventurer. Your quest awaits.
If people want to look up this information, Aaron Giles, or Giles, I don't know how you pronounce it, Giles. He was actually one of the leaders on the MAME group for quite a while. He wrote a very good article on this on laser capture, because one of the problems was being able to read some of the non-readable areas of a laser disc in order to find where the specific frame sequences and stuff are stored. There's stuff kind of, the only way to read it is to read it raw, like through Linux or some other ways to get a really good clean laser copy into a digital format. And he wrote a really excellent article on this, and no one's actually come up with a very good standard yet. MAME has pretty much been hands off on most of the laser stuff. We have drivers, but they're not officially part of the system because of licensing with Digital Leisure and such, where they've actually still have a commercial product and they own the licenses for many of these laser platforms. And because of that, MAME will not ever put out a product that will directly compete with another commercial product.
Yeah, and so Digital Leisure is run by the guy who actually invented Dragon's Lair and Space Ace.
Okay.
And so he still releases those games.
They're still live up to this date, and you can get things on Blu-ray and various other things. But I don't expect to see much in the MAME area until those licenses expire.
That's interesting. And I know there's products out there we've talked about on the show, including Dan. But there's products out there that actually emulate the whole Laserdisc component and the contents, so that you can, if you have a Dragon's Lair, there's products out there that will do it.
It works great. Buy one.
Is that Merlin or Dexter or both?
Yes.
Yeah. So, we have these products out here, especially for people that have an actual Dragon's Lair machine that's not functional.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to replace some of those laser players anymore. It's got to be quite tricky.
Well, over to my house, I have like 8.
Dan, tell us a little bit about that. What does it take to, why are there so, tell us a little bit about Laserdisc, Dragon's Lair players, the original Laserdisc player, why they go bad, why you need to replace them. And
the original player was painfully slow, so the more you used it and it would hunt around on the disc, obviously it was taking a fair amount of abuse, and eventually it would just die. So then you upgrade to, the next level, which is a Sony player, like a 14, I think it's a 1450 or something like that, and that performed better. Still not fantastic, and a few people have come out with hardware that will allow you to use the Pioneer players, and those worked very well. But, now that there's the ability to completely eliminate the Laserdisc player out of the equation, everyone wins. Because even though I had the high-end Pioneer player, it still was a shitty experience. You know what I mean? It would still never track perfectly.
Yeah.
So the first time I ever beat Dragon's Lair was truly with the Dexter board.
Which is kind of fun. I mean, it's funny, and they've released those on DVD and Blu-ray. Well, did they leave them on Blu-ray? But they also had a Wii version and like an Xbox version. But they've been redoing that franchise over and over again, which is understandable why MAME doesn't want to dip their foot in the pool, because they don't want to be like under lawsuit for taking money away from them. So
yeah.
And that brings up the legality question again. Like people probably ask you, or you've heard this. Well, I have a game. Can I download the ROM legally? What's your answer to that?
The canned response from MAME has always been, if you get permission from the manufacturer, it's most likely fine. Anything else is pretty much a gray area.
Yeah. So if you download,
and that's, it makes sense. They're not gonna promote anything beyond that.
But they probably won't come and prosecute you either. So it's like, like my restoring my Donkey Kong machine and actually getting the ROMs back to the original US ROMs that are supposed to be in there.
Right. I mean, you've got a different scenario there too, which is also kind of a gray area. You're not running it on a PC. You're just swapping out a chip.
Right. I'm essentially putting in the same chips that were there, though. It's like I blanked them, rebuilt, blanked them, reburned them. So
what an op would do.
And then there's the anomalies where these guys come in and they're like, okay, well, the most famous one I can think of is the dude that reprogrammed his NES ROM for his daughter, who was like, well, why can't I play as
the princess one?
The princess. And so, or Princess Peach or whatever they call her. But then we had this conversation too, but in the original Donkey Kong, she was called the Lady. So why can't I play as the Lady and rescue Mario? And so Dad swapped the sprites, and now you're playing as Pauline or the Lady, and you're going up the ladder and you're saving Mario, which is kind of cool. And then likewise in the Clav community, some guy picked it up and he's like, okay, I'm gonna reprogram the arcade ROMs, and now I can actually, if I find the right site, I can download those ROMs and reconfigure my Donkey Kong machine to play as the Lady.
I think that's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Someone actually did a full cabinet too, if I remember right on that.
Yeah, so Rich at This Old Game produces a full art package for that, so you can get totally pink art for your Donkey Kong machine, which is really cool, actually.
I would do that in a minute if someone handed me a Donkey Kong. I wouldn't even restore it. I'd just do a Pauline.
But more likely if it was a Popeye.
Oh.
Have you seen the DK2, which is just a homebrew where the guy redid his own levels and such?
Yeah, and I have DK Remix, which is it's even more insane, So there's actually logic and puzzles in the game now. You have to hit the girders, and then a girder falls down, so you can actually jump up to the point you need to and hit a button, and then it's really complex.
There's a whole community called Misfit MAME, which supports a lot of those different ports and stuff that people have done that are not really official part of MAME, but they kind of ratchet it on so that you can check them out in MAME too.
That's really cool. So, you guys, any more questions for our esteemed guest?
Yeah, I have a question about a weird control panel. I noticed that I just got a Super Strike Bowling. 90 game where it's got some infrared sensors. Who figures out how to map that out onto the keyboard? I saw that there's these two guys, Moto Shifo and Anto Pisa. Do you know those guys? Adolfo 69.
Not in particular, but there's I think there's 600 developers that coordinate with this stuff. So it's international. I mean, there's a ton of people that we share the repository, and there's a group email and so on. But there's a few that stick above the rest that are always doing stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure.
So did you have any games where you're like, I don't know how to get people to be able to play this because the interface was so weird? I mean, really, you used a good example there with the dartboard.
Yeah. Well, personally, I haven't run into a lot. I haven't done that many drivers. I've probably only done about maybe 6 or 7 drivers. So most of it, like I said, was in the gaming industry for gambling.
Can you talk a little bit about that, or is this hush hush?
No, it's fine. It's
tell us about your gambling habits.
Yeah.
What do you play when you go to Vegas?
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of these gaming machines you see in the casinos are really not as protected as you would think. I mean, a lot of this code,
I believe that,
is wide open and pretty easy checksums and stuff to crack if you really want to. And I found I haven't found anything interesting in anything at this point, but there are places outside of the U.S. in various countries that are using these machines and modifying them. And gambling in a casino outside of the U.S. is basically buyer beware. You have no idea. Where in the U.S. we have a gaming commission where every piece of code that's written for every single slot machine, video poker, etc., has to go through them. They review the code. They test the machine for various ways for cheating and shocking it and whatever. And so very stringent guidelines on these products. But once you get out of the U.S., it's pretty dangerous.
And you haven't, you haven't done that, right?
Even for some of these machines, just on my own SDK that lets me make my own poker machines.
So you can do like your own themes and stuff?
Yeah. In fact, I converted a video poker machine into a horse racing game.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can put in tokens and it'll pay out coins through the hopper because it's a physical machine that was supporting that. But because it's a video monitor, I can make it do whatever I want it to do as long as it's within the confines of the resolution.
So this is a good segue because your sort of analytical mind combined with your creative initiative, building these machines out into something entirely different. I don't know what inspired you to do this, but now you're a board game developer. You actually have, in addition to your skills as a programmer, you're doing this cool thing with a new game. Tell us about your new game, your company, how you started it, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. The company is called Stolistic Games, and I got my first card game out in November of last year. Got it in like Games by James, and The Source has it, and it's out on Amazon. You can go to www.prospectica.com. That's the name of the game. Or you can go to www.stolistic.com, which will link you to Prospectica. It's kind of I've always enjoyed games, whether it be electronic or tabletop and board games. So I kind of got into this and started to produce one, and I thought it was a blast. I've actually got a second one in the works, and it's probably about 90% done. This one is a cooperative card game, and
I count myself as one of your beta testers for Prospectica.
You were beta testing Prospectica very early on, and then we played that other one, which I haven't produced yet, which was that kind of adventure game thing where we died every 30 seconds.
Yeah. It was fun.
So we're going to call that game You're Going to Die, because that's all you do in that game.
I also would like to offer other titles such as Die, Die, Die.
Yeah, so
I died last week. I died tomorrow.
Yeah, that game was insane, but
I died too.
But it's really fun. I mean, the mechanics, having kind of an analytic mind, the rules and various things kind of come sort of easy, and they're fun. They're playable games, and it's something that you can do as a hobby. And if it ever becomes big, then I'll switch over. But it never hurts to have a couple irons in the fire.
Real briefly, how much does it cost on Amazon?
It's $14.99. It's a double deck, so 108 cards with an instruction booklet.
It's a nice package. I bought one on Amazon for you, by the way.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, I want to keep prices low. I want it to be impulse, let people try it without feeling that, we're kind of in a renaissance right now, I think, of board games. And I'm seeing a lot of Kickstarter programs and a lot of independent games. People are moving from your classic, gin and canasta and things, and they're moving into more independent type games. And you're even seeing that even in the video game industry, more indie games versus AAA games.
Yeah, Adam Vernier brought up Killer Queen, which is a really interesting multiplayer arcade. I don't know if it's independent, but I didn't see a major label on it. I didn't see, Activision tied to it or anything, but it's a really, really cool game. 5-player multiplayer, 2 teams. So that I totally agree. And you have all these, all these little game companies cropping up all over the place. Really, for the last, I think it's been a while now, that you had these indie games that have been cropping up. Will Wheaton even has a show, or had a show called Tabletop.
Yeah.
Where he kind of featured some of those.
I was actually thinking of submitting some stuff to him, see if he would actually give it a go. You never know. But
you might get some good exposure, and who knows, maybe you get to play with Felicia Day.
Yeah.
Will Wheaton is so cool.
Yeah, he is really cool. He's way cool.
One conversation, but it was about it happened 20 years ago, and I think the topic was porn. So I don't know if I can talk about that.
Go on.
I'd have to go look it up.
There's
it was an email
about a certain couch in his.
What?
Reading something, I don't know.
No, I think we had a shared interest, but I don't recall what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, sidebar over.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
So maybe we should get together and make an arcade tabletop game. I don't think I've seen any out there. So
that'd be interesting. Maybe like a touch screen. You could slide the cards around, and then you could swap out multiple games.
That's true.
You could.
How long would it take you to design and kick out an arcade game, 80s style? Today's day and age.
What hardware?
Really put one together.
Well, let's just say you're going to do a Space Invaders.
It doesn't matter.
Club.
Can I choose my own hardware?
Sure.
Yeah, I using a product like Unity. I don't know if you've heard of Unity.
Oh, sure. Yep.
I've used it quite extensively, and it's really dead easy. I mean, you're looking at a couple weeks, and you could have something for many platforms because you can compile Unity to work on PlayStation, Xbox, several consoles like that, PC.
And you went after Crazy Climber and Donkey Kong in your early ROM, days when you're trying to alter ROMs and stuff.
Yeah, Arkanoid. I actually put an editor out. You can find it somewhere on the interwebs out there. I don't know. And then Donkey Kong did I basically just like to peek inside there and see how stuff is kind of created. Crazy Climber is a really weird one. I thought that they were just going to put the buildings together kind of in a very linear fashion, but it's nothing like that. There's 27 unique slices. So every time you see a pane of windows with a door in the middle of it, that's one slice. And then another slice might be just all windows. And then they end up stacking these up, almost like a Jenga puzzle or something.
You know what? Crazy Climber always reminded me of Spider-Man on the Atari VCS.
Oh, sure.
That stupid web. And you're trying to get to the top, but you just keep getting...
All those games are just awesome. Superman.
I love Spider-Man. It's like one of the best games ever.
Superman.
Oh, yeah. So good.
I love that one.
Endless screen, jump screen to screen.
I could never quite figure out what I was supposed to do in that game. I think
there's a pattern to that game. I don't know. Yeah, Indiana Jones.
What the hell was going on with Indiana Jones?
That was a tough game,
dude. And then
trying to find the black market and all that stuff.
Magic had a game called Riddle of the Sphinx. I remember buying it, and I was like, "What the fish is this?"
Yeah, there were
what?
What about ET? Did anyone buy ET?
Yeah.
Dude, Riddle of the Sphinx made ET look awesome.
Get that? Did you see now you can get the ET cartridges that were in the landfill?
Yeah. I saw that whole documentary.
The documentary? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
And it's a callback to Ernest Cline we were talking about before the show about.
Oh, that's right. He showed up to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody's interested, apparently there's been a recent leak of some footage from Ready Player One, which incidentally my fiance just started reading 2 days ago. She's loving it.
Just don't read Armada and you'll be good.
It's a good book. Not Armada.
Do not read Armada.
Ready Player One is a good book, right?
I'll wait for the next one.
Yes, that's a very good book.
Speaking of books, I think it's time to bookend this show. Really appreciate being on the show, Mr. Jim Stolis.
Yeah, thank you for having me on this world-renowned broadcast.
Who knows?
yet.
Maybe in 10 years we'll be famous.
Digging us out of the archives.
But anyway, I really appreciate being on the show. We had a great time. You have such a wide, knowledge of MAME and arcades and such a different perspective than we do as collectors, right, guys? So really appreciate being on the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can obviously listen on our YouTube Live, or you can subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. We're also on Twitter at Arcade Radio and Facebook.
Or Adam's phone number is
548 game. Nobody calls that number. Subscribe to us. Listen. Thanks for listening in. Those guys that did tonight. And we look forward to seeing you on the next show. That's Arcade Radio signing off.
8 is enough.
This is where we dance.
No, we dance.
Mark, I'm disappointed.
Am I supposed to put some pants on? I'm putting my pants on.
I can't reach them.
Are you taking your pants off again?
I just never put them on.
Forgot this. You forgot this show? That cold open was something else.
That's what she said.
All right, guys, I'm going to drink NyQuil. Goodbye.
Well, I'll see you later, Dan. Man,
Bye, Dan.
That guy's sick. He's sick and not in like the cool teenage way.
Sick, man.
He's sick. I suppose I should take us off the air.
Oh, yeah. Pull the plug.
Stop.
Hit the stop button.
Stop.